you're not going to solve anything from a place of punishment and violence.
Chase, a warm welcome to the Face Yoga Expert podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm well. Thank you so much for having me. It's so good to be here.
Well, it's an absolute pleasure, and I've loved reading about everything that you do and everything that you offer. It's so aligned with my philosophy, and something which I want to start off with and really dive into is talking about the concept of beauty and what makes us feel beautiful. And maybe you could share a little bit about your philosophy on feeling beautiful.
As I'm sure you can imagine, I have very big opinions about this. um, I'd like to start thinking about this just as an offering. Take it or leave it. It's a buffet for you to sample from or not. So, one of the things I think a lot about is that there's a big confusion in our respective cultures about the difference between beauty and glamour. So, beauty is an experience of yourself and of the world. And it doesn't matter if you have the biggest, weirdest pimple you've ever seen in your life on the tip of your nose, you are still capable of experiencing beauty, especially in yourself. So I think it's important to distinguish the two, because I think in the confusion of beauty and glamour, we abandon beauty practices. And so beauty to me is an experience. It really is that feeling of awe when you see like a beautiful sunset or sunrise, the experience you have of just a majestic tree that you're like, oh my God, it's been there 1,000 years. 1,000 years. That's an incredible witness. So that sense of awe. Now, I don't know if I can on a regular basis, or we can on a regular basis in good mental health, generate that sense of awe in experience of ourselves. That's probably some kind of disorder. But if you really do take a minute to ground within the truth of our existence and like how much had to go right for each of us to be sitting here having this conversation, and for people to be listening to this, like a lot went right. A lot went right. So I think just holding ourselves with that sense of care and reverence is important. And as far as like a more sort of common conceptualization of beauty, it really requires a lot of care and tenderness and appreciation and acceptance and a practice of being in discovery. Because we're not going to look the same tomorrow that we did today. And today we don't look the same as we did yesterday. And there's this beautiful concept. Those Greeks are so wise. They have several different words for the concept of beauty, and they're all a little different. And one that I'm particularly enamored with, it's actually on our Beauty Elixir One bottle, is I don't want to mispronounce it, but I believe it's pronounced Oreos. And Oreos speaks to being in the moment. So it talks about being fully expressed and blossoming into the moment that we're in. And I think that has a lot of implications. So as someone in her 40s, I'm not trying to look 22. I'm trying to be the best, most beloved, kind version of myself at 42, almost 43. And to me, that's really what it is. And so gestures of care, whether that's applying beautiful serums or it's helping yourself by performing facial yoga, facial massage, meditating, these are different beauty practices because it fills your cup. It makes you feel really beautiful. And I think there's this really funny Roald Dahl quote about like having like a beautiful inside and how it shoots out your face like sunbeams.
Yes, exactly. I love that quote. It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. So to me, we want our beauty practices to fill our cups.
Hmm.
So we can shoot out our faces like sunbeams.
Yes, absolutely. And that sense of being in awe that we're here and awe of being alive and how much of a miracle that is. And then feeling a sense of gratitude for that and being able to sit with that and hold space with that and feel so thankful for that is so, so powerful. And what I'd love to ask you, which leads on really nicely from that, is if someone listening is thinking, yes, that sounds great in theory, what a wonderful concept, but I'm just not feeling beautiful. I'm not feeling great about myself. I'm not feeling great about how I am on the inside or on the outside as well. What wisdom, tips, or maybe even personal experience can you bring to that and speak to that?
We have all been there.
Yeah.
We have all been there. And I think in particular, since we're speaking the end of 2024, I know that depending on where people are, the COVID emergency ended and whenever they declared it in 2022, but we're really all coming out of a thaw still. I think you see that in ourselves, you see it interpersonally, you see it. So I want to really contextualize the moment that we're in. But on a more personal level, I just want to say we've all been there. I gained so much weight during COVID from the stress, from like so like, trust me, I know what it's like to wake up and be like, oh my God, my skin feels like it's dull. What is it doing? I know what it's like to feel like I'm not in my body. I know what it's like to feel like things are changing, especially. So I'm not a mother yet, but um, I have walked through pregnancy with many of my friends, and all of them talk about this feeling of like feeling like an alien isn't growing inside of them, or they feel like cows, or they're just like, why am I so big? And then one of them ended up retaining just a lot of water. So there's all these different moments that can really cause us to feel out of sorts with ourselves. So I actually have good news about this. It's coming up to be healed. That feeling is coming up to be healed. It's coming up because it wants your loving attention and care. And here's the trick. The trick is to not punish it, to not try to kill it, to not try to stamp it out, to not apply violence to it, but to actually like feel your big feelings and not act from it. Feel your big feelings. And once you process it, which takes like something like 90 seconds, you can journal about it, but you're not going to solve anything from a place of punishment and violence. If there are truly changes that you need to make for yourself, because I'm not going to sit here and say, just be in simple acceptance of yourself. Sure, that's part of it, but not in the way I think people think. Because I think when people hear, oh, accept yourself, what they actually hear is a request that you resign yourself to the status quo. And that's not really the demand. The demand is let's stay present to the moment. We're not going to punish ourselves. We're not going to be unkind, because here's the deal. We cannot punish ourselves into change. Tell me a time it's ever worked. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it. So it is literally, you have to deal with your feelings first, right? Feelings first, wisdom second. And so the next step, because again, I've really been there. I actually have an autoimmune condition. And I've had Kypris for 13 years. And when I was starting the company, I actually got really sick, like really, really sick, like couldn't walk to the mailbox sick. And so there was this moment where I was literally stuck on the couch. And this wasn't like for a few months. This was like something that took me years to navigate. And so I think that this actually applies not just to I'm feeling really crappy about myself, I'm feeling crappy. And I think there's two things we have to focus on and recognize. One is there's an element of I'm in a tough moment. I may not be my best ally. I may need help. So and here's the litmus test for anyone who wants to help. Is it actually loving? Right? Because you're in a yoga space. So I know there's a lot of people that say loving things, and it sounds really nice, but it's not foundationally rooted in love. Mm-hmm. It's actually double. It's very Orwellian. It's very double speak. So that's litmus test number one. And number two is, what is one step I can take today that will bring me closer to the feeling or the version of myself I want to be, or I want to have? And I think it's tricky because social media in particular, like we spent so much time on our phones during COVID, especially, and it distorts us. Like the way we look on camera on social media is not how we actually look in person. And I saw a study that there's like an uptick in people who feel like they have large foreheads because when you use the camera on social media, it like enlarges your forehead. There's something about the perception of the camera lens that enlarges the look of your forehead. So set aside social media because there's, again, like you can have trusted experts in the space, but you can really only trust them if you've interacted with them in spaces outside of social media. So again, what is one loving step you can take today to bring you closer to that? And I would also offer too, there might be a practice involved. So like for me, one was walking. Am I going to walk every day? Do I need to figure out a diet that maybe makes me feel better? It could be because my line is vegan. I'm the founder of Kypris, and Kypris is a vegan, cruelty-free skincare line. It's also B Corp. So we have very high and mighty morals about all this. And I was vegan and I had to stop being vegan. It was like my whole world. I was like, you got to be kidding me. But it made me really ill. Mm-hmm. And so I'm an omnivore now. I eat everything in moderation, but like that was a big ego killer for me. And man, let me tell you, I feel 1,000 times better. When I turned 40, I was like, I'm Benjamin Buttoning. I feel amazing. How I did at 30. So I think, we become what we do consistently. Mm-hmm. And so what is one thing you can do? What's one loving thing you can do today that's going to bring you closer to what you're desiring for yourself? Like, don't gaslight yourself and be like, it's fine, it's fine. No, but even if you're in a situation where you're so limited that you literally cannot walk to the mailbox, you know what you can do? You can stretch. Mm-hmm. You can do basic yogic breathing exercises on your back. You can touch yourself on your chest and whisper kindnesses to yourself every effing day until you believe them. Mm-hmm. Like literally sometimes our aesthetic preferences about ourselves are what ultimately can rescue us if we approach it from a place of kindness, care, and love. Sorry, that was a long answer.
That's a great answer. I'm aligned with everything you say there. And I think, so many amazing points that you made. And I really love how you actually brought social media into it, because actually I think that's so important in this day and age, because I don't think we realize how subconsciously that is affecting us. And I'm exactly the same age as you, so we didn't grow up with social media, but I have 2 daughters and they're not yet on social media. They're 8 and 12, but at some point they will be.
I'm so nervous for you. How do you deal with this?
I know. And, I was listening to a podcast today that said by the time children are 18, and I can't remember the exact number, but I think it's something like they will see 70 million images that have been photoshopped or edited or AI'd or any of that in some way. They will be exposed to that many million images by the time they're 18. Now, actually, to grow up with that is it's huge. But even us as women in our 40s, it is easy to see these images and to instantly compare ourselves to them without even realizing that we are. So actually taking a step back from social media is so important. And I love how you said to also sit with the feelings, because I think that's really important. And that's quite uncomfortable. It's so uncomfortable. But if we just say to ourselves, just do it for 90 seconds, and you're so right, that's all the body will really hold on to one of those feelings for. And if we sit with it for those 90 seconds, it can be like a wave and we can let it pass through. And then after that, that's then the time that we take the action, because we don't want to sit into it too long. We've got to let the wave pass. And then we start to think, how can we start to, I always say, if you can't go to self-love, go to self-gratitude. Just thankful. What am I thankful for? Because it's all very well us going self-love, self-love. And yes, that's great. But we all have days, even women with cycles, even there are certain weeks of the month that we're not going to even feel anywhere close to self-love.
Oh my gosh, it's so true. My girlfriends and I were talking about this. I'm like the saddest person the day before my cycle starts.
Absolutely, exactly that. But if we can just sit with the feelings for a bit, then feel a little bit of gratitude for it, and then take a few positive actions, like you said, walking, journaling, skincare, whatever it might be, then it's just making that shift. Laughing, because
Laughing.
really, none of it matters. None of it matters. And that's what I think we forget. And I am really guilty of this myself, taking everything so seriously. Everything, because does it really matter? At a soul level, does it matter? It doesn't. And just laughing it off, that helps.
Like the levity and like giving it away and like, let's not white knuckle this so much. Like it doesn't have to be so. I also think sometimes there are other things happening in our lives. Like we want a relationship to be a certain way, or, and that is, whether it's like with a partner, a loved one, a spouse, a business partner, a parent, a sibling, it can be anything. And I think sometimes the lack of control we feel in those relationships, we can sometimes end up putting it on ourselves in and putting it in places where like we feel like we have control. And sometimes it can be the way we look, how much we do or don't exercise. We're funny creatures that way. And you're right, kind of just like having a little space,
Yeah, definitely shake it off, literally shaking off, moving it through our body for sure. And I'd like to take a little bit of a turn on that actually and talk a bit about your skincare line, because I know so much of what we've just talked about is embodied within your products. So tell me the inspiration behind your skincare line and why you started it.
Well, at the end of the day, we want results, you know? And I was just, you have to remember it was a while ago when I started this. So it was about 14, 15 years ago when I was really thinking about this intently. How do we get results? Because a lot of the clinical lines that existed, and still this is very true today, the lines that are out there that are sort of doctor brand or clinically branded have these amazing actives in them, but they're made with, like, they have a lot of filler ingredients, but the filler ingredients they're using aren't great for you. They're not great for the environment. And frankly, from a formulation perspective, there's a huge opportunity to like turn that part of a formula into a value add. So for anyone who's unfamiliar with like how skincare is often formulated, you're going to have 1 to 25 or 50 actives in a formula, which is going to be like a segment of the formula. And then depending on the type of product it is, let's say it's a water-based serum or a moisturizer, you're going to have your actives, and then typically you're going to have water, and then you're going to have like some kind of glycol or propanediol or something in there that's going to help solubilize those actives into the water phase of the formula. And I kind of looked at that and I thought, wow, that's like a huge missed opportunity, because it's such a big part of the formula. Like it's such a high percentage of what's in the product, like why not turn that into more of a value add to what we're doing for our skin? And the alternative to these more clinical brands were these like very natural, almost craft skincare brands, which, some of them are formulated so beautifully that they are like plant medicine, but more often than not, they don't wear very elegantly. And one of the limitations, which I can't believe I'm even saying that, but one of the limitations of quote unquote natural ingredients and materials is that, sorry, not ingredients that are farmed and either pressed or extracted and then turned into an ingredient, is it's going to vary to a degree from year to year. And by the way, we use a ton of ethically sourced, organic, biodynamic, plant oils, extracts, et cetera, et cetera. I am a huge believer and proponent in them, but I also recognize there are some limitations to them. And so I wanted something that was going to have the integrity and the beauty of these gorgeous natural materials. But I also wanted the consistency of the science and the elegance of the wear. But I also wanted the formula to have the standard of integrity that comes with these natural materials, right? So when you think about how a natural material comes to be, you think about, well, where is it grown? How is the land managed? Where, literally, where is it grown? Are you in the Kazanlak Valley of Bulgaria? Are you in the Loire Valley of France? Like, where are you? And what's happening contextually with that material, because I really do believe in the material offering, like the literal empirical offering of the thing, but there's also a subjective or energetic offering, right? Beauty from beauty is one of our pillars because we believe that you cannot create beauty from exploitation. And so we have very intensive supply chain practices. So I wanted this really beautiful combination of science-driven, clinically validated, green biotechnology forward ingredients combined with ethically sourced, regenerative botanicals. And that is what Kypris is.
Amazing. And what I love about your website and your social media is it has such a deep, meaningful, and authentic voice behind it and mission behind it for sure. And one thing which really spoke to me as I was reading up about it is how much you're about empowering women. And I really loved that message. I felt it all the way through actually, your website. Would you be able to explain a little bit more about that?
I'm so touched that you picked up on that because not everyone does, but our community does.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm always fascinated by who can hear it, who can receive it.
And do you know what I call that? I call that soulmate clients.
Soulmate clients, yes.
Or customers, soulmate clients or customers. Yeah, yeah. Because your people will find you and they'll hear that message, they'll feel that message.
Yeah, it's really funny because so we have this one product, we have these 3 beauty elixirs, and I'm going to get into the nature in a minute just because it's so extraordinary. But all 3 of our beauty elixirs have a bioidentical antioxidant complex in it. And one of the antioxidants that's in it is a bioidentical CoQ10, which is made using a technology that was developed at MIT and then commercialized. And it's like one of the most studied forms of antioxidant by the National Institute of Health. And it's used in all kinds of different circumstances. And I'm totally forgetting your question, but I wanted to get this out. So some people come to us because they're like, oh, I want this amazing active. They they totally kind of missed the boat on that. So as far as women's empowerment goes, it's so tricky because they think when it's like, I want to empower you through skincare that not everyone can afford. It's very complicated.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, so for me, I look at the inception of something and like what's the full arc of its journey. I don't even know if this is going backwards. What is the full arc of its journey? Sometimes it flips. So it's, yes, it is about women, and it is about having a better conversation about beauty, like the one that we're having.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also a lot to be considered about supply chains, because supply chains are wild places. There is no analytical test for human trafficking or human rights abuses or things that truly matter. I mean, the number of women and girls that are subject to modern slavery, women and girls who are sold into sex trafficking. There are men who are laborers who are also subject to these horrific practices. And then you also start looking at how different countries outright promote this type of subjugation, and how it is, instead of a human rights issue, there are people who try to make it a political one. No. And in a supply chain, there you encounter a lot of this. So let me explain, because it's, and I want to be really clear, like these are very high and mighty ideals. I promise you that there is something happening today in my supply chain that I'm not aware of, that if I knew about it, would probably kill me. It is impossible to have a perfect supply chain because there are so many people involved. And anytime people are involved, it is imperfect. And I'm not resigned to that, but it is something that the team and I are constantly seeking out. It's part of our process of assessment when we're making products. Like, and it's not even so much that so what I'm learning is like, we don't encounter a human rights abuse in a direct sense. It's not like somebody calls us up and is like, we didn't pay somebody and we made them work. It's not like that. What we look at is this an area of, is there a climate problem here? Is there, because with climate events, there's a lot of stress that, lands on communities, especially depending on where they are. And that causes economic stress. And then that can cause an uptick in people marrying their young daughters off earlier than not, or who is contracting like in a particular country or area, and is that in any way impacting so I'm just thinking of like in Malawi, we source rose geranium, and there's a cigarette company that will grow tobacco in that part of the world. Like, is that anywhere near where we're growing our crops? And is there a relationship there we need to be aware of? Because part of the reason these companies will grow crops outside of the US or the UK or even Europe is because there's more lax laws regarding pesticides, less expensive labor, fewer labor laws, et cetera. There's more room for issue. And so this is something, it feels like an impossible task, but it is something that we really pay attention to. So when I think about empowerment and beauty, I'm thinking a lot about how healthy can our supply chains be? Can we promote programs that are positive? So there's one that I'm fascinated by. So we work with a UN Global Compact project in Burkina Faso that works with, now it's over, I believe, 200,000 women farmers, and it functions like a small business administration. I don't know what the term is for the Small Business Administration in the UK, but they teach women how to farm. They help them set up bank accounts. They teach them how to sell the goods. They give them a guaranteed marketplace. It is the most beautiful shea I have ever touched. And so it is not organic certified, but I also know they're growing it without pesticides. So it feels a little bit like a win-win-win, because even with organic farming, there's still quite a bit of pesticide use. And so that's one really beautiful example. Another beautiful example is the roses in our 1000 Roses, which comes from a woman-owned farm in Bulgaria. And that is a farm that's biodynamically run. And the rose industry in Bulgaria has grown so much over the course of the last 10 to 15 years, as well as the textile industry, that they've essentially disarmed Bulgaria, meaning like they stopped manufacturing weapons to sell into certain countries. And so I'm just really fascinated by how growing beautiful ingredients can actually have an apparent impact on an economy in a way that we actually have a little bit more peace in the world, which I'd like more of, please. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, you have never smelled roses like this before. And I just can't help but feel like there's a relationship there, where like it's born of this. I don't even know if I don't know how conscious it is. Like, I don't know if Bulgaria set out and they're like, all right, we're getting rid of the arms people. We're going to focus on roses. And by the way, growing roses has a lot of issues too. So like nothing is perfect, but I'd rather have more roses in the world than guns.
Thank you so much for explaining all of that so beautifully. And I can tell you're so passionate about it all. And I'd love to sort of finish with 3, I guess, rather quick questions. One that's a little bit deeper and 2 which are a little bit more fun. And I'll quickly explain what they are and I'll let you answer in which order you would like. So I'd love to know your top tip for inner peace, but also I'd love to know your star sign and whether you know what your human design energy type is.
You know what? I just had mine read. Okay, so I know my sun sign is Sagittarius. Okay. My moon is in Gemini and my rising sign is Pisces. I am a manifesting generator.
Amazing. Love that.
There's like a bunch of other.
There is. But manifesting, you're such a manifesting generator. I love that. Yes. My eldest daughter's also a manifesting generator. And I love.
Does she talk a lot?
Do you know what? I would say the best description of manifesting generators are multi-passionate and hyper-capable. For sure. Oh. Yeah, definitely. Definitely just into so many things and, really into one thing. And then it's completely fine to pull back from that thing a little bit and go completely into something else, but really capable with all of those things.
I'm in 2 classes right now. One of them is a neurobiology class, and one of them, I'm learning how to read astrological charts.
Love that.
Lawrence Hillman, who's James Hillman's son, who, is the Jungian archetypal genius behind everything. So I'm really excited about that.
That sounds so fun. Well, I'm a Pisces.
If I need a guinea pig, I'm going to follow you and be like, do you want me to read your chart?
Yes, please. I'm Pisces sun. I've got Aquarius moon and Aquarius rising. So I've got a lot of air and quite a bit of water in my chart. Tiny bit of fire and not much earth.
Pisces, and you can like land the plane, so to speak.
Yeah, well, exactly. And I think it's because I've got so much Aquarius energy in me. So I
think that's a water sign, but I think it's an earth sign.
It's an air sign. Air
sign. Okay.
Yes. I'm like, my chart is very air. So hence why I like communicating and speaking. And Aquarius is very much about thinking outside the box and doing things very differently. So actually, yeah, even though I'm a Pisces, my Aquarius moon and Aquarius rising are a big part of me.
Human design archetype.
Generator. I'm a 5-1 generator. Yeah, exactly
that. Makes sense. The little that I know, that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. And your top tip for inner peace, I'll let you share that to finish.
Set boundaries. I think we have to be really mean and grumpy when we set boundaries. And I think that comes from a place of uncertainty within ourselves. But and by the way, setting boundaries is not about demanding what other people do. It's actually about what we will do if someone doesn't respect boundaries. Please don't speak to me that way. That's making a demand of somebody else. If you continue speaking to me that way, I am going to hang up the phone without ceremony.
Yes. Absolutely. Completely agree with that. And if people would like to find out more about your skincare, more about you and your philosophy behind everything, where can they go?
Code to your community.
That would be great. We can put it in the show notes. So if you send that through to me, that would be great. And I'll pop your
Maybe we should
website
make
in
it
there as
gratitude, peace,
well.
love.
Yes, exactly. For anyone watching on YouTube, they can see I've got that behind me. If you're listening on the podcast, I've got these new neon lights at the top, gratitude, peace, love. So yes, and I'm going to turn this so you can see I've got my logo there as well, the Danielle Collins, the face yoga expert. So that's very cool. So I will make sure it's all in the show notes for you. So gratitude, peace, love. Yes. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Take care. Bye bye.